I want to ask you just briefly about climate change.
Sure.
It seems to me a lot of these nations want a target out of Australia. You've indicated that that could well happen, but at the moment it's as fast as we can do it, and it's technology, not taxes.
Correct.
How are you going to convince the Nationals?
We're just working the problem, and the problem is how we address a world that is moving to a new energy economy, a new carbon neutral economy. That's going to happen. Financial markets, capital markets, whether it's governments, internationals, this is where the world is heading, and that has profound implications for Australia.
Why is Boris Johnson?
We have to ready ourselves for that, and that's why the technology partnerships are so important. Yesterday I had a technology roundtable on clean energy with those operators in the United Kingdom, and there's a shared view about how we have to find these solutions, but not just that, make them scalable. So these are technical tasks. These are practical things that we have to achieve to be successful. I mean, when you sit down with countries like Japan or South Korea, where Australia has been a major energy exporter and driver, since the 50s and earlier, we get to do that again in a new energy economy and be successful again. But we have to adapt to be successful.
Why is Boris Johnson so hot to trot on the issue, do you think?
Oh, he's got, I think, a deep commitment, and I think people in the United Kingdom do also, and that's fine. And they also carries the responsibility of COP26 this year. I thought Boris did an incredible job at Carbis Bay. I thought the way he created an atmosphere was one of the most candid, free-speaking international summits I've ever been to. There was a genuine dialogue and there was a genuine rapport. I mean, a number of the leaders now, we have been meeting with each other, whether it's been on screens or in person, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, during pandemic, now for some years. And so there is a good understanding amongst particularly that group. And even with Narendra Modi only being able to join us by video screen, I mean, Narendra and I and the others in the room already have a good understanding of each other. So this is, I think, an important exchange. It's more than a dialogue, it's a genuine exchange.
I know you get asked this every interview, but even though you keep saying the election's next year, people are still saying the elections could be this year.
I don't know why they're doing that. Why do you keep saying it?
Well, you did say if there was a major political event, it could happen.
I'm not aware of one having occurred.
Yeah. Well, that's the trajectory we can see. That's the end of it.
Elections due next year. There's too much to do now, and Australians expect me to be focusing on that. I mean, that has always been my view. 2021, I knew was going to be an even bigger challenge than 2020. I mean, in 2021, you were dealing with coming through the pandemic, and the challenge of 2021 is even only accelerated because of the fallout from the pandemic to date and the more uncertainties that are coming, the delivery of the vaccination program, these other major events that are coming up later in the year. I mean, well, I'm very pleased that the Australian economy has been able to weather the storm better than almost any other advanced economy in the world. But we have to keep that up, and so we're constantly having to adapt. So that's where my focus is, and it has to be. That's where the government's focus has to be. It can't afford, for the sake of the Australian people, to be taken off and looking at those issues unless they were, forced upon us.
Do you have confidence in the vaccination program's on track, that it's looking perhaps better than it was, that
it's certainly accelerated.
By the end of the year, we could look pretty good on that front.
I would certainly hope so, but there are shocks that come along the way, as we're only seeing again now. And you have to deal with those, and you have to respond to them. There's also the broader challenge of the vaccination program, not just in Australia but in our own Pacific region. I think an important point that was made at Carbis Bay was that for each of our own nations to be more protected, then more of the world needs to be vaccinated. And that's certainly true in our region when we're thinking about Southeast Asia, Indonesia of course, but also Papua New Guinea and the islands of the Pacific. So that is an even bigger challenge than just our own country. But we are, I think, making great progress there. There's a lot more to be done, and we want to continue to encourage people to come forward and get those vaccinations. But then you've got the additional supplies which have been coming through for Pfizer, and then you've got Moderna coming later, and the sprint later in the year will be very important. But you've just got to roll with the challenges that come your way and get the job done.